While most of his Republican challengers are attacking the president on his management of the economy and healthcare reform, former pizza magnate Herman Cain has taken a different approach, questioning whether the president is, and I quote, a real black man. Here's what Cain told the New York Times magazine. A real black man is not timid about making the right decisions. It's documented that his mother was white and his father was from Africa. If he wants to call himself black, fine. Cain went on to say the kind of black men he admires include Martin Luther King Jr. and his own father, but not the president. Goldie Taylor is an MSNBC contributor and a contributing editor at thegrio.com, and I'm delighted to say that she's with us. Was Herman Cain basically just looking for some attention for himself by making a comment like that?
I think the more attention he draws to himself, the more fanfare he can kick up among his constituents, the more dollars he can raise for his campaign. You know, in recent weeks, his campaign has taken a turn as some of the more credible candidates have taken the stage and sort of sucked the oxygen out of the room. Then he's gasping for air. And so opportunities like this, he's going to take, every shot he can to remain relevant. Unfortunately, he's decided to use this president and, his ethnicity as his pathway to relevance, and I just think it's counterintuitive.
There was almost a tone of insult in that kind of comment. Your mother's white, your father's from Africa. What does he think he's doing?
I personally take offense to it. I take offense to anyone who can decide who's black and who's not, as if there is a membership card, or a fabled membership card to be given out, and least of all to be given out by Herman Cain. I mean, who made him chairman of the Black Club Committee? And so I personally take offense to it. My own family is biracial, and so I think, at the end of the day, he should move on to issues like education and poverty and unemployment and the things that make this country move forward.
But one of the things that Cain may have been picking up on is the fact that whenever President Obama raises his voice, becomes slightly more assertive, people start talking about this angry black man notion. Where's that from?
Well, I think, as African Americans, we call it the black tax. And so when you are in the public square, whether it is at work or church or school or holding public office like the White House,
you're not supposed to raise your voice?
There is not.
You're not supposed to misbehave?
There's a delicate balance. What is seen as aggressive for some of us may be seen as standard behavior for maybe some others. And so to show displeasure or to show your anger or to show a certain feistiness might be playing into a vicious stereotype that has lived on about black men for centuries now. President Obama, to his credit, has been nearly unflappable, both on the campaign trail and now in office.
Nearly? I think he has been.
Well, there have been some times, just as the other day, when, the back straightens up and he's ready to let loose. And so there's no doubt that he can get angry, but it is tempered in a way that, to his credit, he brings a grace to that.
But Goldie, he can't win because people have been complaining about him lacking passion, lacking assertiveness, lacking leadership. The moment he does so, they accuse him of being an angry black man.
You're absolutely right, but I'll tell you that his plight in this country, fighting the angry black man stereotype, is no different than any other African-American man has to live with from day to day. Even Herman Cain, in an interview with a reporter recently, who asked him questions about ethnicity and other things, raised his voice and nearly shut down the interview before immediately recoiling and having to apologize to that reporter. So even Herman Cain is susceptible and understands that there are some very, very delicate balances that you have to make. President Obama understands that. My brothers understand that. I mean, that's just sort of the way of the world. And I think how we comport ourselves in the public square says how credible we can continue to be. If you play into the stereotype, it means marginalization. And for some of us, it means the difference between the unemployment line and the soup line. And so that's literally, it means the difference between them. I've faced some of this in the workplace myself. There have been some recent articles about whether or not being on thegrio.com, whether or not being a African-American woman, whether it benefits you to have that aggressive stereotype surrounding you. And so people are still talking about, whether or not it is a benefit. I can tell you that the stereotype, or any stereotype, really isn't. When I come into the workplace, I want to be taken on my merit for what I know and what I bring to the table. But if you're labeled as aggressive, that is just another way to marginalize. And so President Obama faces that, but something else that he faces that you see in this campaign and that you see out in the public square, today almost anybody can get an internet connection and a keyboard and become a journalist overnight. And so many things are said about this presidency or others that hold public office, and he has to decide what he can respond to and what he can't respond to. You know, since I think Bob Woodward wrote a book in the mid-'90s called Shadow, where he talked about how the Nixon presidency really changed how the presidency is viewed, what you can say about the person who inhabits it, but it also changed, I would say, how those people can respond to criticism. And so if George Bush or Bill Clinton got angry, it was sort of standard behavior. If Barack Obama gets angry and he responds in kind, he certainly cannot.
Absolutely. Insightful as ever. Goldie Taylor, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.